Hello, and welcome to the orientation training. Today we'll be discussing the Haynesville Facility Contractor and Visitor PSM Orientation. The course should take approximately 30 minutes to complete. This course also contains audio, so please adjust your speakers as needed or use headphones. You can view the narration script at any time by clicking the Transcript tab in the upper right of the course window. Also, throughout the training, should the course contain additional resources, you will be directed to the Resources tab in the upper right of the course window. You may also notice additional buttons or icons in the lower left or upper right of the course window. The Replay button will allow you to replay the current slide, in case you missed something the first time. The question or information icons will display additional information you may find useful when you hover your mouse over them. Finally, unless otherwise noted, you will be clicking the Next button to navigate through the training. Please note that you will need to complete each slide before being allowed to continue. So let's get started. After taking this course, you should be able to explain the primary safety hazards when working at or visiting Haynesville PSM facilities. Describe specific actions to take in the event of an alarm. Explain the hazards associated with hydrogen sulfide exposure. Identify evacuation muster locations at each of the Haynesville PSM facilities. The following video describes how we expect you to stay safe when working at our PSM facilities.
In this orientation, you will learn requirements for working safely on Williams locations. However, all situations cannot be discussed. You are required to ask questions when you are uncertain and get answers from your supervisor and your authorized Williams representative before proceeding with your work. Proper personal protective equipment, according to need, must be worn at all times. Contract employees are required to supply their own personal protective equipment. Contract employees must wear hard hats at all times when on location, except inside offices and other areas that have been formally exempted from this requirement. Hard hats cannot be made of metal and must meet OSHA and ANSI standards. Contractors must wear safety-toed boots with all leather uppers, oil-resistant soles, and a defined heel. Safety-toed tennis shoes are not approved, as they can make supervision of this requirement difficult to enforce. Safety glasses with side shields are required at all times. Additional eye protection may be required depending on the task. For example, a face shield or goggles is required when cutting or grinding, or handling and mixing fluids and chemicals. Gloves should be worn unless their use interferes with the necessary dexterity to perform the task. There are numerous hot surfaces in this facility. Exercise caution and wear gloves to prevent injury from these sources. Special chemical-resistant gloves must always be worn when mixing or handling chemicals. Hearing protection must be worn when indicated or any time you are working near high noise levels. Ensure the hearing protection used meets at least the minimum requirements for the noise level in the area. When required, all personnel on a Williams location performing work will wear flame-resistant clothing that bears a tag identifying it as such to comply with OSHA requirements. No modifications of any kind to this clothing, such as cut-off sleeves, will be acceptable. If the location where you're working has been identified as a hydrogen sulfide location, you must wear a personal H2S monitor throughout the day. This must be worn near the breathing zone. Do not obstruct the sensor with any clothing or place it inside a pocket. Williams field employees wear a four-way gas monitor that detects not only H2S, but carbon monoxide, oxygen levels, and LELs, or lower explosive limits. This type of monitor is recommended for use on all Williams locations. A monitor that detects H2S is required, however. Always comply with posted signage regarding PPE. Consult the safety data sheets of materials with which you're working for required PPE and ask your supervisor if you have any questions. You must be certified and qualified to perform many tasks in this facility. If you're operating a crane or forklift while working here, you must be certified for that task and must be able to provide proof of certification upon request. This includes seemingly simple tasks such as moving a forklift out of the way. Only certified personnel can operate a forklift. Also, you must be certified as a qualified electrical worker to perform any work involving electrical current, including testing a device to confirm it has been successfully locked out. Seek a qualified person for all electrical work. Only vehicles that are covered by the contracting company's insurance and are necessary for work are allowed onto Williams property. Personal vehicles must be parked outside the facility fence line or in a designated area. The Williams representative assigned to your project will determine where personal vehicles may be parked. It is recommended that a ground guide be utilized for backing a vehicle. This is of particular importance when a vehicle is being spotted into work position. If no one is available, the driver should wait until someone becomes available to help him or her with the task. All backing incidents are viewed as preventable at Williams locations. The maximum permitted speed at all Williams facilities is 10 miles per hour. Lower speeds may be required depending on conditions. Always observe posted limits. Smoking is only permitted in designated areas that will be established by Williams. Leave matches, lighters, and cigarettes in lunchboxes or a vehicle while on location. Drugs, alcohol, firearms, or weapons are not permitted on Williams property at any time. Williams reserves the right to search your vehicle or person for any prohibited items. Failure to comply if asked will result in your expulsion from the property. A list of all hazardous chemicals present at this facility or site is available through the Williams representative in charge of your project. It is your responsibility to review safety data sheets to ensure proper protection is in place. All hazardous chemicals that you bring onto this location must be accompanied by the SDS for that chemical. The SDS must be supplied to your Williams representative before any work begins. The chemicals must be in their original containers and their labels must be legible. The Williams Hazard Communications Program is available for your inspection at the company area office, from your supervisor, or from your Williams representative. This detailed plan is in compliance with all applicable federal regulations and is available to you upon request. Permits are required for both confined space entry and hot work conducted at a Williams facility. A confined space is defined as any space that has been identified and posted as a confined space, and any space that is not designated for continuous human occupancy. Hot work is defined as any activity that may produce a spark, flame, or sufficient heat to be a fire hazard. Examples include but are not limited to welding, grinding, and cutting. Contractors are responsible for fulfilling all the requirements of the permit, including monitoring for changing conditions and providing a fire watch while any hot work is being performed. Permits may be obtained through your authorized Williams representative in charge of the location, or your company may have an authorized individual who can complete the permit and present it to a Williams representative for review. In either instance, they must be completed in their entirety with all applicable blanks being filled. They must be legible, and they must include names, dates, types of work to be performed, and equipment to be used. The person who receives the permit must communicate the information on the permit to every member of the work crew and be certain each person understands the provisions of the permit. In addition, they must post the permit at the job site. Whenever the work is completed or stopped, the receiver, that is the person who received the permit, must return the permit to Williams by placing it in a place designated by your Williams representative. If the permit expires, the receiver will return the permit to Williams. The permit can be revalidated and once again reviewed by Williams, or another permit can be written. However, permits can never be revalidated verbally. You must have a permit before entering a confined space. To be a confined space, it must have limited means of access and egress, be large enough for a person to enter, yet not be designed for human occupancy. A tank or vessel is a confined space, for example. However, the space between tanks or equipment can become a confined space where egress is limited and harmful vapors can build up in still air. It is important that such is noted in your job hazard analysis and discussed in your pre-job meetings. If personnel will be entering such spaces, a permit is required. Hazards posed by electrical current and high pressure are present in this facility. Williams has developed detailed procedures for mitigating and eliminating these hazards. However, your cooperation and strict adherence to these procedures is required to maintain a safe work environment. Lockout and tagging of energized equipment will be performed only by Williams personnel or an individual authorized by Williams in accordance with established procedures. As a contract employee who is servicing equipment that falls under this standard, you are considered an affected employee. This means that you must be fully informed about the lockout and tagging of equipment with which you'll be working. Be certain that you understand the correct use of your individual lock. Information about the lockout of energized equipment will be a part of the pre-job safety meeting. Be certain that you get all your questions answered concerning this important topic. Never hesitate to ask questions or express concerns. Make certain all your questions are answered to your satisfaction before starting any work. Each contract employee must have a unique lock and key. These locks and keys are not provided by Williams and must be provided by the contract employee or his or her employer. Once the equipment has been locked out and tagged by a Williams employee or a Williams authorized person, and it is confirmed that the equipment is de-energized, you will be asked to attach your unique lock. At the conclusion of work and after the equipment has been successfully tested, you will remove your lock. You must never remove any lock other than your own. Under no circumstances may you remove another person's lock. Prior to work, the emergency evacuation procedure will be reviewed with your supervisor and the Williams operations leader. An assembly point or muster area will be identified, and you must exit to that assigned point. It's important to note the windsock in order to determine wind direction. If there is a release of harmful vapors, you want to exit your location crosswind or upwind from a known source. This allows you to get out of the vapors in the shortest time possible. If the evacuation alarm sounds, put down all work and walk immediately to the assigned assembly area. Walk and do not drive to safety. Your vehicle could act as an ignition source if the release is flammable. Remain at the assembly area until you are told otherwise by an authorized Williams representative. Leaving early could result in individuals re-entering the facility as part of a search team and could result in injury or death of a search team member. Make certain you are accounted for and authorized to leave before doing so. Preventing slips, trips, and falls and fire protection are essential to a safe work environment. Walking and working surfaces in this facility can become slippery and are often uneven by the nature of their operational needs. Ditches and trenches are often open while work is being conducted. You must be diligent in recognizing the risks and taking appropriate measures to protect yourself and others. Utilize 3 points of contact when using stairs, ladders, and walkways. Maintain at least 3 points in contact with floors and handrails when moving about the facility. Maintaining a combination of 2 hands and a foot, or 2 feet and 1 hand in combination, helps prevent falls. All floors, walkways, and paths must be kept clear of tripping hazards. Correct any tripping hazard anywhere immediately. Slipping hazards must be corrected. Spills must be cleaned and slippery residue removed immediately. Spent materials and packaging must be disposed of properly throughout the workday. All materials must be orderly stacked at the end of the workday. All flammables must be stored properly in a containment designed for such materials and located away from potential ignition sources. Horseplay or practical jokes of any kind will not be tolerated at Williams locations. While no harm may be intended, experience tells us that people have been injured as the result of such activities. Engaging in horseplay or practical jokes may result in your expulsion from the property. Williams will not tolerate harassment of any kind on its locations. Sexual harassment, threats of violence, intimidation, slurs, or demeaning behaviors will be dealt with swiftly. You are asked to report any such behaviors directed toward you or others to your supervisor or the authorized Williams representative with whom you work. Such reporting assures a safe work site for everyone. Those engaging in such activities may be subject to civil legal proceedings or criminal charges in addition to being removed from the property. A safe job starts with planning. For the safety of everyone involved, a thorough job safety analysis is reviewed prior to any work being done. All contractor supervisors are required to be involved in the JSA to eliminate and mitigate hazards before work begins. The JSA will be reviewed with all members of the work team prior to beginning work. It is your obligation to ask questions and fully understand the task before any work begins. Every member of the team must know the potential hazards they may face and how to safely deal with those hazards. The roles and responsibilities of team members will also be discussed, along with appropriate responses to unexpected events or emergencies. Tailgate safety meetings, including all personnel on location, will be conducted prior to any major job or operational change due to conditions. Examples may include removing a vessel from service, installing equipment, or preparing for equipment startup. They are also conducted when work has been stopped due to worker concerns or changing conditions. The new plan must be discussed and agreed on by all workers involved and be communicated to all team members. As with all team meetings, this is your opportunity to have your questions or concerns addressed and to outline the roles and responsibilities of team members. Be attentive and active in all tailgate safety meetings. These are essential to establishing a safe work location. You as an individual not only have the right, but also the obligation to stop the work immediately if you observe an unsafe condition or an unsafe act. If the work is not proceeding by the plan, or if you feel the current method is unsafe, it is your responsibility to stop the job. Your concerns may be based on failure to follow the plan, failure to follow established procedures, or a variety of other possibilities, including changing conditions that impact the work. Report your observations and concerns to your supervisor, who will in turn review the circumstances and correct the situation. Report all injuries, regardless of severity, to your supervisor. It is the responsibility of the contractor's supervisor to report all accidents, injuries, and serious near misses to Williams and any applicable federal, state, and local governmental bodies. This reporting process helps Williams and your employer. By investigating and understanding minor events, we can develop successful accident prevention programs that can prevent more serious injuries. Reporting near misses, events in which injury could have been occurred but didn't due to good luck or circumstances, are also required. By reporting near misses, corrective action can be taken that can prevent an injury in the future. A form is available and you are required to complete a near-miss report when you are aware of such an event. Environmental stewardship is essential at all Williams facilities. All spills must be reported regardless of size. Each must be cleaned and the area restored in compliance with EPA and Williams regulations and policies. This brief overview of safety requirements and environmental concerns serves only as an introduction. There is much more to working safely here, and your continued learning is required. Throughout your work here, be certain that all your questions are answered and that you follow each safety procedure precisely. Everyone who works here is depending on you to do your part to create a safe work environment. It is through the combined efforts of all of us that we achieve the level of safety and environmental consideration that is required. We want you to return home each day to enjoy all the great things life has to offer.
Now that you've seen how we expect everyone working at or visiting our facilities to stay safe, let's look more closely at some other requirements. The Converse, Spring Ridge South, and North DeSoto facilities all fall under the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, regulation known as Process Safety Management, or PSM. Part of this regulation requires that entrance to and exit from the facilities must be controlled. You must always sign in at the control room before entering the facility. And as the sign-in entrance log becomes our checklist at the muster point in case of emergency, you must always sign out when you leave the facility. Please note that all persons entering the facility must have hydrogen sulfide awareness level or certification training. You will not be allowed to enter the facility without this training. While visitors may be provided this awareness level training locally, all contractors must have received more extensive external hydrogen sulfide training prior to entering or working at the facility. Hydrogen sulfide may be present in the facility. This is an extremely toxic gas that is colorless, flammable, heavier than air, soluble in water, smells like rotten eggs. At higher concentrations, hydrogen sulfide deadens your sense of smell. Do not depend on your sense of smell for protection. As noted before, you must have, at a minimum, H2S awareness level training to enter the facility. If this is the level of training you have received, you are expected to evacuate the facility in the event of an emergency incident. H2S personal monitors must be worn in the facility at all times. While employees and visitors use the Orange Ventus 4 gas monitors, contractors provide their own hydrogen sulfide monitors. All monitors are to be worn in the breathing zone, i.e. in a hemisphere forward of the shoulders with a radius of 6 to 9 inches. The monitor should always be worn on your outermost layer of clothing. The Converse Central facility has been provided with H2S monitoring equipment. This equipment detects the presence of hydrogen sulfide and is set to activate a beacon at 10 ppm. If you see a beacon flashing, immediately evacuate the area, notify a supervisor, and report to the designated muster point. Also, the Converse Central facility has been populated with emergency escape packs throughout the facility. They are for emergency use only in the event of a hydrogen sulfide release in the facility that requires use of breathing air to escape. In the event of any other emergency that requires a facility evacuation, you will be notified by the control room via air horn or facility alarm. If you hear the evacuation signal, proceed to the nearest muster point, keeping wind direction and other factors such as a fire or gas release in mind. Due to the flammable nature of natural gas, do not operate motor vehicles during an evacuation. And as a general safety precaution, never leave unattended vehicles or equipment running. Always shut them down. Events that may require an evacuation include fire, chemical or gas release, inclement weather, any other hazardous situation determined by access midstream personnel. Just to emphasize the point, natural gas is highly flammable. One of the major reasons that extensive precautions are taken regarding the control of natural gas at our facilities is that in the event of an uncontrolled release, static electricity from the flow of natural gas coming out of a pipeline or equipment can actually initiate a fire without any external ignition source. In addition, many flammable liquids are stored in containers and tanks throughout the PSM facilities. These are also potential fuel sources of fire and explosion. The exact location of these hazardous materials is identified in the Facility Emergency Action Plan. This plan is available for review at the Facility Control Office. Primary muster area is outside gate near the office control room. Secondary muster area is at the northwest exit. Always keep wind direction and the nature of the emergency in mind when selecting your evacuation route. Primary muster area is at northwest gate at the muster sign. Secondary muster is at the northeast gate. Again, always keep wind direction and the nature of the emergency in mind when selecting your evacuation route. Primary muster area is outside gate near the office control room. Secondary muster area is at the southeast gate. Primary muster area is outside gate behind the office control room. Secondary muster area is at the southeast gate. At some Haynesville facilities, there are limited access areas. These areas of the facilities present unique hazards and are not permitted to be entered without access midstream personnel permission. Safety equipment is available at PSM facilities, including fire extinguishers. These fire extinguishers are for incipient or small fires only. They are to be used only if you've been trained in their proper use. Report any instances of missing, damaged, or used fire extinguishers. Please note that these are for emergency situations only and are not to be used for hot work by a fire watch. You will also see wind socks at all PSM facilities. These are necessary to determine wind direction in case of an emergency release. Always determine the wind direction in case you hear an alarm sound or in the event of a chemical release or fire. Always move to the appropriate muster area by moving crosswind or upwind of the hazard. Emergency shutdown buttons, ESD, are also located around PSM facilities. The location of these ESDs can be seen on the Emergency Action Plan diagram. As an affected individual, in case of emergency, you have the right to ESD the facility. If this is necessary, proceed to the nearest muster area and contact an Access Midstream employee. Emergency eye wash stations and emergency showers are required to be located in areas where hazardous chemicals are used and stored. These are to be used if skin or eyes are exposed to hazardous chemicals. Follow the directions on the station and remove any foreign objects from the eyes. If you observe that an emergency eye wash or shower has missing or ruptured components, or if you see it has been damaged, report it to an Access Midstream employee. All incidents requiring the use of an emergency eye wash or shower station should be reported to an Access Midstream employee. Not all incidents that occur at a PSM facility are emergencies. While each facility emergency action plan addresses situations requiring immediate attention, smaller incidental events are not to be neglected. These events could include small chemical, solvent, or fuel spills. To facilitate their quick cleanup, spill containment kits are provided at all PSM facilities. In addition, each control office contains a first aid kit to assist in the care of minor injuries and illnesses. Flare stack can also be observed at PSM facilities. The flare is an integral part of the facility's safety equipment and is used to prevent emergency situations. If there is a problem in the processing, such as a pressure-sensitive valve releasing excess natural gas, that gas will automatically be directed to the flare. If you happen to see the flame at the flare getting high for a short period of time, don't be alarmed. This just means the system is functioning as designed. In the event of severe weather, you may be directed to the on-site storm shelter. And always follow the directions of Access Midstream personnel in the event of an emergency. Things to remember. The posted speed limit is 10 miles per hour. Always sign in and out. Wear your H2S monitor at all times. If you have additional questions or concerns, please contact an Access Midstream supervisor, an Access Midstream Environment Health and Safety representative, or consult the Contractor Safety Handbook. A copy of the Contractor Safety Handbook can be found by clicking the Resources tab above. Congratulations! You've completed the Haynesville Facility Contractor and Visitor PSM Orientation. You should now be able to explain the primary safety hazards when working at or visiting Haynesville PSM facilities. Describe specific actions to take in the event of an alarm. Explain the hazards associated with hydrogen sulfide exposure. Identify evacuation muster locations at each of the Haynesville PSM facilities. To complete this course, you need to pass the course test. To begin the test now, click Next on the bottom right of the screen. Or, if you prefer, you can click the menu button to revisit any page in this course. And then, when you're ready, access the course test from the menu.